Jay.
Ready?
Let's go get 'em. Throughout their relationship, they have collaborated frequently.
They have always been the gold standard, a power couple whose very names became shorthand for success, influence, and generational wealth. Jay-Z and Beyoncé, the billionaire mogul and the global superstar. Together, they built an empire of music, business, and cultural dominance. To the world, they appeared untouchable. But what if behind the diamond-encrusted curtain, the story was far more complicated and far less perfect? Recently, whispers have grown louder. Questions are being asked that no one dared to even imagine a few years ago. Why would a couple worth nearly $3 billion take out massive loans on a home they already own outright? Why refinance the same mansion twice, all while paying in cash for the most expensive house in California history? And why, at the height of her career, is Beyoncé touring harder than ever before, launching product after product, as if the empire's lights might flicker without her? These are not the kinds of moves we expect from billionaires in their prime. For some, it's nothing more than shrewd financial strategy, the way the rich stay rich. But for others, it looks eerily like preparation for a storm no one else can see. This is not just about property, numbers, or mortgages. It's about the possibility that the most powerful couple in music is playing defense, not offense. And if that's true, the question isn't if something is coming, but how big it will be when it hits. Before the rumors, before the speculation, there was only the glow of triumph. Jay-Z and Beyoncé were not just entertainers. They were institutions. He was the street poet turned business titan, building Rock Nation into a global powerhouse and investing in everything from streaming platforms to luxury champagne. She was the voice of a generation, redefining what it meant to be a modern icon, balancing artistry with an almost mythical public image. Together, they weren't simply wealthy, they were aspirational. Their combined influence reached far beyond music into fashion, sports, activism, and culture. The couple's rare public appearances together only added to their mystique, turning them into symbols of Black excellence, resilience, and unity. They became masters of narrative, able to weather personal storms, from Jay-Z's admitted infidelity to the infamous elevator incident, and emerge stronger, at least in the eyes of the public. Even business setbacks seemed to bounce off them. Every headline, every public move, every collaboration reinforced the idea that they were not just surviving, they were thriving. For years, their empire seemed bulletproof. Awards piled up, tours sold out in minutes, and lucrative brand deals poured in. When they bought sprawling properties in Los Angeles and New York, it was seen as another flex, another reminder that the Carters operated on a level few could even imagine. But somewhere in that perfect picture, the first cracks began to form. Small, almost invisible until now. The first signs came quietly, hidden in real estate headlines that most people skim over without a second thought. In 2017, Jay-Z and Beyoncé purchased an $88 million estate in Bel Air, a sprawling architectural masterpiece quickly nicknamed the Bear Mansion. For years, it was simply one of their many crown jewels. Then the numbers began to shift. Not long after the purchase, they borrowed over $52 million against the property. Years later, in April, they refinanced again, this time for nearly $58 million. That's a staggering $110 million in debt tied to a single home they already owned. All of this while still making headlines for buying a Malibu mansion for a jaw-dropping $200 million in cash. To the casual observer, it didn't add up. Why would anyone, let alone a couple with a combined net worth in the billions, take on that kind of debt when they clearly had the means to pay outright? And why refinance the same home twice, effectively doubling the risk? Some financial experts explained it away as strategic liquidity, borrowing to keep cash free for investments, avoiding capital gains taxes by not selling assets. But others saw something different, an urgent need for funds, the kind that doesn't wait for markets or tax seasons. The Bear Mansion was no longer just a luxury property, it had become a puzzle piece in a much bigger, more complicated picture, one the public was only beginning to piece together. Once the details emerged, the figures were impossible to ignore. The new $57.75 million loan came with a 30-year term and a locked 5% interest rate for the first decade, roughly $310,000 per month. Stack that on top of the earlier $52.88 million loan, with payments around $226,000 per month, and the Carters were suddenly paying more than $500,000 every month, just in mortgages. Add property taxes, it is about $100,000 a month, and the monthly total to simply hold on to the Bear Mansion climbed to an estimated $637,000. And this didn't even include staff salaries, private security, landscaping, or the endless maintenance that comes with a property of that scale. On paper, billionaires can shoulder numbers like these, but that's exactly why the move puzzled so many. If you have the cash to drop $200 million outright on a new Malibu estate, why borrow so heavily on another? Why keep two mega mansions instead of selling one to cover costs? Some argued it was clever wealth management, leveraging existing assets to preserve liquidity. But others saw a warning sign. Borrowing against collateral already leveraged once before isn't a decision made lightly. It can signal a desire to protect other holdings from scrutiny or from loss. Behind the spreadsheets and interest rates, a quiet question began to surface. Was this about opportunity or survival? While the financial puzzle played out on paper, the physical evidence appeared on stage. Beyoncé's schedule became almost punishing, a whirlwind of back-to-back performances, sometimes 4 nights in a row in the same city. Her latest tour crisscrossed continents with barely a pause, demanding the kind of endurance she hadn't displayed even in her early years. Offstage, she was everywhere. A hair care line, a luxury fragrance, an alcohol brand, new fashion collaborations, product launches dropped in quick succession, each backed by carefully crafted campaigns. It was as if every week brought a new revenue stream, another way to keep the machine running. For her most loyal fans, this was simply Beyoncé at her most ambitious. But others began to question, why was a woman who had already conquered the industry working as if she still had something to prove? Or worse, something to pay for? The phrase, carrying the empire, began to pop up in online discussions, with some pointing out that she is now the biggest revenue generator tied to Roc Nation. Her output wasn't just prolific, it felt urgent. The kind of urgency that doesn't always come from artistic inspiration, but from necessity. Whether that necessity was about funding new ventures, covering mounting legal costs, or safeguarding wealth in turbulent times, only she and Jay-Z knew for sure. And yet, in the court of public opinion, the optics were shifting. The Queen's crown still glittered, but the weight of it had never looked heavier. Then came the revelations that cast a longer, darker shadow. Reports surfaced that Jay-Z had been denied a $115 million business loan, a line of credit intended to expand Roc Nation. Another request for $55 million was also turned down. For a billionaire, these were not just rejections, they were red flags. Banks rarely refuse someone with his level of wealth unless they see risks behind the scenes. The whispers grew louder when old admissions resurfaced. Desiree Perez, a high-ranking Roc Nation executive, once openly stated the company had been $40 million in debt, teetering on the edge. Jay-Z himself admitted losing $20 million in the Busby lawsuit, a legal battle that drained resources and demanded expensive damage control. And then there were the quiet but persistent rumors of his indirect ties to Diddy's mounting legal troubles. Connections that even without direct involvement could pull him into the costly orbit of litigation. Lawsuits are rarely quick, and they are never cheap. Taken together, the denied loans, the public acknowledgement of past debts, the significant legal expenses, the picture was becoming harder to dismiss. These weren't just isolated incidents, they were threads in the same fabric. To some, it was the image of an empire weathering storms. To others, it was the first sign that the empire itself might be under siege. Either way, the stakes were higher than the music charts or the next business venture. This was about survival and legacy. As the pieces came together, two competing narratives emerged. The first painted Jay-Z and Beyoncé as master strategists, veterans of the industry who understood that wealth is not just about what you own, but how you move it. Refinancing properties, leveraging real estate for liquidity, and avoiding capital gains taxes were all classic tools of the ultra-wealthy. To these supporters, every move was deliberate, calculated, and ultimately smart. The second narrative was less flattering and far more unsettling. In this version, the couple's financial maneuvers looked less like strategy and more like a scramble. The back-to-back refinancing, the denied lines of credit, the relentless touring and brand launches, the shadow of legal entanglements. One by one, they added up to a picture of two of the most powerful figures in music taking defensive action before a crisis could erupt. It's not that anyone believed the Carters were broke in the conventional sense. But for billionaires, financial strain doesn't look like overdue bills. It looks like tightening cash flow, liquidity trapped in illiquid assets, and a constant juggling act to keep the machine running without selling the crown jewels. And so the question remained, were Jay-Z and Beyoncé simply staying one step ahead of the game, or were they bracing for a blow no one else could see coming? In the end, the answer might depend less on the numbers and more on what they choose to do next. If there is a truth hidden behind the walls of Malibu and Bel Air, only Jay-Z and Beyoncé know it. To the outside world, they remain dazzling, the billionaire couple who redefined music, business, and culture. Yet the trail of refinancing, denied loans, legal pressures, and relentless work paints a more human picture. Even the most powerful are not immune to pressure. Maybe this is simply the way the wealthy protect what they've built, by moving assets, borrowing against property, and keeping cash ready for opportunity or defense. Or maybe, as some suspect, it's a quiet preparation for a storm. Either way, their choices offer a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. Grandeur does not guarantee stability, and the real battles are often fought far from the cameras. For their fans, the story is both sobering and oddly reassuring. Even icons face crossroads. Even empires require maintenance. And sometimes, survival means making moves that look messy from the outside. The lesson is simple. Wealth may buy freedom, but it never buys immunity from risk. Whether you're a global superstar or an ordinary person, the need to protect your future, financially, legally, and emotionally, is universal. Now the question turns to you. Are Jay-Z and Beyoncé navigating the game like seasoned masters, or are they quietly bracing for impact? Share your thoughts below and let's unravel this together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the conversation, because this story is far from over.